You're listening to the Straight A Conspiracy Podcast.
Well, I teased in the last, there was an exciting cliffhanger. Where
I've been biting my nails ever since we finished.
Where I told you exactly what was going to be in this episode, which is attention. And that's the second big thing, numero dos, that you need to know about your brain. So
Yes.
What is attention, KDO?
Well, people say all the time in class, pay attention, pay attention. Your teacher says, pay attention. Your parents say, pay attention when I'm talking to you. But for most of us, that has about as much actual weight to it as like that cat poster that hangs on the wall that says, hang in there, with the cat hanging from the tree. It's like very nice in concept, but it doesn't really mean anything. What does it mean to pay attention?
Well, I'm a big fan of Brian Callen, the stand-up comedian, who's a buddy of both of ours, because we hang out with really big stars like Brian Callen. But Brian Callen has that great line. Brian Callen didn't necessarily have the best experience in high school.
Right.
And he said, they used to tell me as a kid to pay attention. And he said, what does that mean? Squint?
Right. That's what we think. We're just like, if you're facing forward and you're like, look like you're concentrating, then maybe that's enough.
Yeah.
But that's not enough because you can be making this face and still thinking about what you want to have for lunch. So, in that sense, attention is your most important resource. Also because no matter how much your teacher tells you to pay attention, if you don't do it, if you don't actually take charge of your attention, the learning isn't going to happen. Right?
You are the boss of your attention.
Yeah.
No one controls it but you.
Yeah, and with great power
comes great responsibility. Thanks,
That's
Uncle Ben
sure.
from Spider-Man.
Yay! But so what is attention? What's the easy way to think about it? Well, basically, your attention is like a spotlight in your brain. And whatever you put that spotlight on, whatever you put your attention on, that is what your brain automates. So as long as you're always focusing your attention on the next thing that you need to automate when you're trying to learn, then you're doing exactly what you need to pick up that skill as quickly as possible. The danger, of course, is that if you let your attention wander to what you want to eat for lunch, you are automating and getting much faster at choosing your salad toppings, but you are not getting any faster at the thing you're actually trying to do.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a good way, the example that we sort of give with this is reading. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's this great dance back and forth in terms of automaticity and attention, where, as a little kid, you don't know how to read, and then, humans have figured out how to take you through those steps. So first you put your attention on your letters, your alphabet, and you automate that, and you get it so that you can, now I know my ABCs, you can sing the whole song,
phonics,
you know all the letters.
Yeah.
And then when you no longer have to think about that, they're like, hey, guess what? You have completed level 1. Now level 2, you're going to learn how to read small words.
Woo!
And then you're like, whoa, this is tough. Level 2 is tough. And then, and so you're going to sound out those words. You're going to go one letter at a time. You start with small words. And when you start to master that, level 2 complete. And now, level 3, now you're going to learn bigger words. And then you're going to start to put them together into sentences. And then ultimately, you get to much harder bosses, things like Shakespeare, and you're looking for metaphor and meaning and allusions and all of that stuff that you do in high school and college. Now, I have used in here essentially an analogy to a video game, because it's a lot like that.
Really
There's a series of levels, and Algebra 1 versus Algebra 2. It's
And you can't advance until you beat that level.
Well, but that's the big difference between a video game, right? Is that you can't skip to, the sort of the final level until you beat those earlier levels. But often, because of the way that school works...
You can try.
Well, or you just get moved up. You get passed up the system.
You try to advance to that level, but that's what makes people frustrated a lot of the time, is that you haven't automated the earlier levels yet.
That's right.
And so you think you're just bad at this thing, when actually it's just not rock solid yet.
And very often, when we work with students, they're sort of struggling, and they're like, I'm struggling with this class. And very often, it's just that there's some sort of fundamental piece that they didn't automate properly way back when, and that once you figure that out, then it all starts to fall into place.
Right.
And so a lot of learning works a lot like what Isaac Newton was talking about when he said you stand on the shoulders of giants. And so if you think about your learning in a particular subject, you may be trying to, you know, master something that's up here, but turns out that this whole section of the pyramid is missing.
So kind of funny, yeah.
And so it's a little teeter-tottering.
It's just made of wet sand instead
Yeah,
of
exactly.
rocks.
And so you have to go back and you have to shore that up and you have to figure out those foundations.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something really that I love, that I find super liberating about attention, which is that I only am responsible for one thing at a time.
Yes, that's true. Because your attention you can only be automating one unautomated thing at a time, basically. So like your attention can only be on one new thing for you, otherwise you're in trouble. And people have all of these myths they love to talk about multitasking and how they can do 5 things at once, and the people who get ahead are the ones who are, you know, working on multiple things at a time. None of that is true. Your brain cannot multitask. It's not a thing. What actually happens
Wait a minute, Katie.
I promise.
Wait a minute.
I promise.
Is there some sort of little test that you want to talk me through here?
I love
that's
this
gonna,
test.
Yeah, this
Hey,
Katie.
Hunter.
Yeah, go for it, Katie.
Hey, Hunter.
Yeah, because I can
you
totally automate.
can you walk?
Yes.
Can you walk and chew gum at the same time?
Yeah, totally.
Can you walk and chew gum and have a brand new phone conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can walk and chew gum and talk on the phone. Can you do all 3 of those things and read a book you've never read before at the same time? Not as well.
No.
Nope, you can't. And here's why. Because walking is automatic for you.
Yeah.
So you have gotten so good at it by now that you can do it without your brain needing to put it's already in there, right? You don't need to put your attention on that. You also don't need to put your attention on chewing gum. By this point in your life, you know how it works, you know not to swallow it, all of these things. This is the important core principles of gum chewing, right? You can do one new unautomated thing, like having a phone conversation where, you know, your mom calls you and she's asking, you know, she's catching up with you about her week and what she did. But as soon as you try to have that phone conversation and also read a new thing that you haven't read before, you're switching your attention back and forth between those things. You're not doing them simultaneously, even if you think you are.
So then so you're saying that I'm just sort of switching between the 2 tasks?
Yes. And
does this connect to my driving?
I mean, I wasn't going to say it, but yes.
Yes. This is also why it's super problematic to be driving and texting, or driving and be on the phone, or any of these other things.
Because even if you think that your attention is actually on your phone and the road at the same time, it is not. It can't. And you're slower and you're more prone to mistakes.
Yeah.
Because you have to, every time you're concentrating on it, you have to take your attention off of the thing you're doing, move it over, put that spotlight on the other thing, take the spotlight off, move it over, put it on the first thing you were doing. All of that is wasted time in the
And
middle.
there's a 0.4 second switching
delay. Yeah.
And so that's why often they talk about people's response time when texting and driving
is slower.
Is equivalent to being drunk.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but even in the case of just having a phone call and reading a book at the same time, you know, you're talking to your mom, you're like, and then you switch over and you start to read the book, and then she says something, she's like, Hunter? Did you hear me? And you're like, well, yeah, no, it was, yeah, we are gonna go this weekend, sure. And then you try to get back into the book, and you're like, wait, where was I again? And you have to backtrack. It's just not as productive.
Yeah, and so even though it's super uncomfortable for me to hear these things about my driving,
here today.
Yeah, but it's super uncomfortable. But part of it is just sort of realizing what human brains can and can't do, what they're suited for, what they're not suited for. And part of what I really appreciate about teaching and about sort of going over this material is that, you know, you find yourself saying these things to kids and being like, wow, what I just said to you is what I need to do.
It's all a big mirror, guys.
Yep.
It's all a big mirror.
So
yeah, but that's the thing is like, what we want you guys to be able to do is play to your own superpowers. And your brain has a lot of superpowers. It automates things so that you can do them at lightning speed. That is amazing. And anything that you choose to put your attention on becomes automatic. So you are completely in charge, that means, of what your brain becomes amazing at doing.
Yep.
That's huge. That's like the greatest thing you could ever find out. Except if you're trying to do it in a way that your brain doesn't like.
That's right.
Which until now we all didn't know, but this is how it works. And that feeling that you get when you're trying to cram too many things into the spotlight of your attention is the feeling of being overwhelmed. So when you're trying to do a lot of things at once and you're like going back and forth and, oh God, wait, I still have to walk the dog and I need to get this done and my boss is waiting for this tonight and this work and I have this homework and somebody else is going to call me and it's like that feeling that you get, that anxiety, is because you're trying to cram too many things into your attention. The best thing you can do for yourself in those moments, if you want to make what you're doing brain friendly and faster, to be honest, like make it more efficient, is you want to take one of them at a time. Put the other ones to the side. Know that you can only automate one of them and just do one.
You know, Brian Callen said something very interesting to me last week.
I believe it.
Yeah, I believe it. But he was saying that, you know, and I shouldn't even say this on air, but Brian Callen is 50 years old. What? I know, he seems so ageless.
Amazing.
But he was talking about how, you know, now at 50, he was finally starting to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
And, you know, that knowledge, a lot of this knowledge that we're dropping on you is not knowledge that was available when Brian Callen was a child. Which was longer ago than you might realize.
Well, and the reality with all of this is that a lot of this knowledge has been around for a long time, but just nobody told anyone.
Yeah.
Scientists figured these things out about the brain, but then no one took the time to say who actually needs this knowledge the most. Learners, students, people who are trying to use their brains to get better, to build their lives.
And this is where we get back to the strength and weakness of my own tribe, the scientists, which they're amazing at figuring things out, but not so great at putting it together and communicating it in a way that anybody who is outside of their little field can appreciate.
Yes.
And so this is, you know, I mean, we've had to sort of unpack our own sort of essentially cultural prejudices. Like there's team science and team humanitarians, and you know, they haven't necessarily played together much. And so we've sort of been working together to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And how do you take all these science insights and then how do you communicate them and break them down in a way that is super accessible and super useful and turn it into stories that people can really get.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing is that, all of this stuff is around, it's in the scientific literature, and our job is really just to pass that message forward to you guys. But then also, by the way, this isn't the end of the line. If you guys then want to take these ideas and turn them into songs or videos or memes or anything like that that's going to move these ideas further, you should do that. Pay it forward, move these ideas, and in trying to figure out how to remake and how to explain these ideas more clearly, then you're going to come to understand them much, much more.
Yeah.
We have learned so much about our own brains and our own issues with driving through writing this book, through tutoring, through working with kids, and then crucially from then talking to lots of people about it, and sort of connecting the dots, making sense of our shared experiences.
Yeah, and as has been the process for us, as you figure out these things about your brain and you start to figure out why the things that have happened in your life happened in the way that they did, and that there's an explanation, and that happens to everybody, and now you can do something about it, everything is going to change. And so here's the takeaway from today. Attention and automaticity, they work hand in hand, and they prove that if you've learned one thing, you can learn anything. That is what your attention and your automaticity working together mean. If you've ever learned anything, it means that your attention and your automaticity both work. They work, they're functioning, way to go. Now it's just about what you want to learn, and the choices are endless. So why haven't you learned everything? That's what we're going to explore in the next episode. We're going to explain why, even with those two superpowers working in your favor, we haven't all become quite the geniuses that we wish that we were.
Yet.
Yes!
Thank you for listening to the Straight A Conspiracy with your hosts, Katie O'Brien and Hunter Motz. While Katie and Hunter are the faces of this podcast, they couldn't do this on their own. They have been lucky enough to have a group of dedicated people help them to get these ideas out there. Brian Jennings, a media literacy expert and author from Rhode Island, edits all of the podcasts. Andrew Hunt in LA helped film and record them. Mandy Ainsley in Johannesburg, South Africa, created a better website. and Josh McKenty, a marketing guru from New Zealand who wishes that he had this book when he was a kid, is devoting his time and energy to make the message of the Straight A Conspiracy accessible to everyone, everywhere. And you can help too. To find out how, visit thestraightaconspiracy.com. It's time for everyone, everywhere to know their own potential and get equipped with the tools to unlock it. While Katie and Hunter love books, they are also screenwriters, directors, and actors. Josh McKenty had the idea to make a multimedia online version of the Straight A Conspiracy. We're calling it the Straight A Conspiracy Bootcamp. It's the one-stop shop to onboard humans into the 21st century. It will be entirely digital so we can distribute it to millions of people that much faster. If you want to support the podcast and this movement in an easy way, simply visit thestraightaconspiracy.com and click on the Amazon affiliate link before you make any purchase. Amazon will give us a piece of that sale. More money means more podcasts, and more money for a project we're very excited about, the Straight A Conspiracy Bootcamp.